Today, we have a special show based on this book called The Afterlife. I hope y'all had a great holiday season. On Christmas morning, I woke up and looked out my window. Imagine my surprise when I saw a cardinal on Christmas Day. Usually, when you see a cardinal, there's all this mysticism around a cardinal. That means they send a message to you from the heavens from a loved one that's passed. So I'm thinking, oh, look, my grandma came to say hi and happy Merry Christmas, or it could be a variety of different friends that I've lost along the way, and I thanked each and every one of them and just went on with my day. Well, imagine my surprise when I woke up the next day and then looked at my Facebook feed and saw that I've lost a very special friend of mine who was a roommate. His name's Terry. And I was just devastated. Couldn't believe it that the cardinal came to visit me because I had recently just lost someone who is very close to me. And I found it very interesting that at the time I've been reading this book called After, which is talking about near-death experiences and what does it reveal about life and beyond. And I couldn't think of a better episode than going through with what happens to us when we die. This book that I'm reviewing is called After. It's written by a psychiatrist, Bruce Greyson. He handles a lot of science. He backs near-death experiences with a ton of scientific information. I wanted to share with you just some experts, and I am going to read a few that were my favorite stories. Colleen was 22 when she had hemorrhaged after giving birth. She had an outer body experience. When she popped out of her body, she was able to look down and see her blood-soaked body lying on the operating table and thought, oh crap, that's me. Her consciousness was somewhere close to the ceiling in the emergency room or in the actual surgical room. She was watching a bevy of nurses and doctors rush around madly, intent on bringing her body back to life. There was a tremendous, heated discussion between my gynecologist and the anesthesiologist. The gynecologist was insisting that it was useless to try anything because it was evident that she, Gina, was in fact dead, and that was it. But the anesthesiast fought really hard to bring her back. He'd said, she's just a kid. We've got to do something. And he urged the nurses to do some transfusions, and he literally forced the gynecologist to join the operating team. She said, I remember being shocked at all the swear words that were being used by the two doctors. I could not believe the doctors were talking like that. And in the presence of nurses. Welcome to real life. Doctors are people too. Anyhow, when she regained consciousness and she went back into her body, she met up with the anesthesiologist and she immediately said, I'd like to thank you for saving my life. And he was taken back a little bit by that comment. And he goes, why do you say that? And she proceeded to share in quite detail the exact story that she experienced. And he realized right away that it was a near-death experience. And he wasn't surprised. So doctors are getting more and more familiar with these kind of events. It's fascinating to me. It happened when I was about 8 years old. My family was all out on a creek. This is pretty irresponsible of my parents at the time. My father had just joined the police force and wanted to go target practicing. In order to be safe, he had us on the other side of a bridge, us kids unattended, no supervisor, on the other side of the creek while he had Mom watch him hit his targets while he was shooting his gun. Being a child and the middle child to boot, we all got into a game of jumping on the crackly ice, and I think this is the typical behavior of children and probably not wise to leave us unattended. But as you probably can see or surmise, I jumped on a piece of crackly ice and actually fell through. What I thought was a creek ended up being a pretty steep drop-off. And I totally went under. I think I immediately went into what's considered a near-death experience. I didn't know what to call it then. I was 8 years old. But I remember looking up from underneath the water and seeing the brightest light I've ever seen in my life. I thought I was going to a castle filled with diamonds. There was just the brightest, clearest, happiest light. And I remember feeling this immense joy, wonderful peace, just serenity like I've never felt before, just comfort. And I felt kind of like I was a princess visiting a castle. In an 8-year-old mind, that's what you think. But I didn't recall speaking to a being or any of that. I think I was whisked away out of that predicament pretty quickly, but I didn't actually come to until I was probably an hour into the trip back home. I found myself naked in the back of the car, wrapped up in a blanket and trying to figure out how I got there. But anyway, I came to this term that, if you had to die, drowning wasn't such a bad deal. It was really peaceful. That's all I could reconcile at an 8-year-old's mind. But as an older adult, I realized that was a near-death experience, but I didn't have the terminology to even really say what that meant. So, he had said, the shrapnel entered through the armhole of Steve Price's bulletproof vest just as he was firing his rifle. A mortar fragment pierced his lung. When the medics finally reached him, they airlifted him, the 24-year-old Marine, from the Vietnamese jungle to a military hospital in the Philippines for surgery. During the operation, he left his body and had a blissful experience of light, warmth, and peace. The burly, heavily tattooed, self-described schoolyard bully became tearful when he described to him, "Doctor, what happened?" He said, "Suddenly I realized I was up near the ceiling looking down at my body. A brilliant white light embraced and encompassed me. It took me in. I felt such warmth and peace and was bathed in the most peaceful, joyful feeling imaginable. I found myself in a place like the Garden of Eden. I didn't say the word God for a long time, but now I can say that light was God. It was like the most loving mother embracing her infant, only 1,000,000 times more than that. On the other side of the stream, bubbling through the garden, was a long dead grandfather. I went to move toward him, but it was over. After his recovery, he tried to return to battle, but found that it difficult. I led my unit. I did all the things I was supposed to, but I could no longer shoot my gun. All I ever wanted to be was a Marine, but I realized I could no longer do my job. The near-death experience had an incredible effect on my life. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fire my rifle. Eventually, I left the Marines, and now I work as a lab technician. I joined the National Guard because it helps people instead of killing them. I am now mild-mannered, thoughtful, and a lot different from the hard-charging macho Marine I once was. I've become so sensitive that when other people hurt, I can feel it. I talk to people about metaphysical things. Before, I would have made fun of people who talked of such things. This experience just, again, reiterates how strong and powerful a near-death experience is. It makes you understand that we're here for a larger purpose than our little human brains could ever fathom. And that to me is very, very important because as I started with this story, I've lost a very, very special friend. And I would like you all to join me on the Patreon channel as I say goodbye to Terry and dedicate a whole show to a person that's very, very significant to me. And I hope you'll all be willing to help me say goodbye. It's just $1 to join, so you could see the video and hopefully can help any and all of you that have lost loved ones say goodbye to. And if you want to donate or join the Patreon page for $5, we'll be happy to put your name at the end of any and all videos as a person who's basically helping me survive. So I'd appreciate any and all of your contributions. At this, I say, let me know if you do believe in the afterlife, if there is something more than the now. If you've ever had a near-death experience, I want to hear your story. Contact us in any of the options, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you see us. Let me know what your story is. I'm fascinated. I want to hear from you. Take care.